living God.
To the living God.
No one can deny.
No one can deny.
That Jesus Christ.
That Jesus Christ is the Most High. Let's go.
I want to read some scripture with you. If you have your Bibles with you, I'm going to be reading from 2 Corinthians, the fourth chapter, starting at the 15th verse. Probably some very familiar scripture passage. Paul is talking about this simple concept. And I want you to get it in your spirit while we're in here. Because we have the grace of God, we don't have to give up. Because we have the grace of God, there's no reason for us to give up. I want to read these scriptures with you. It says, indeed, everything is for your benefit. You've got grace. Everything is for your benefit, so that grace extended through more and more people may cause thanksgiving to increase to God's glory. You got to get what he's saying. He's saying God is surrounding you with all this grace. God is blessing you. He's giving you this grace, not just so you can enjoy it and have fun with it, but he's giving it to you so that through this grace that you have, you can go out and be grace to more people. His expectation is that once you receive grace, that you're going to go out and give grace. He expects that since his son died for you, so that you can be forgiven of sins, that you would then go out and, believe it or not, forgive other people who've done something bad against you. He's believing that because he's paid this ultimate sacrifice, that you wouldn't have a problem going out because of grace and what? Sacrificing. And so he's saying that this whole grace thing is not just about you, although you benefit from it. This whole grace thing results in many people understanding grace and coming to God, and God getting glory because of it. He says, therefore, we do not what? Give up. Because we have grace, is what he's saying. Because we have grace, therefore, we do not what? Give up. Because you have grace, because you believe in God's grace, now the answer to you is, I don't give up. He says, because, therefore, we do not give up, even though our outer person is being destroyed. Our inner person is being renewed day by day. He says, although it's hard for you, you need to understand, on the inside, I am renewing you. I'm giving you new strength. I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you new skills. I'm giving you everything. That's what grace is about. Although it's hard, although you're going through some things, he wants you to understand, on the inside, I'm renewing you. The grace is renewing you on the inside. He says, for our momentary light affliction, just for a short period of time, even if it's been for years, even if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, even if you've been dealing with something for years, it's just a momentary light affliction is producing for us an absolutely incorruptible, eternal weight of glory. You're getting a crown because you don't give up, because you trust grace, because you trust God, because you're getting through it and you're not giving up on it. He's saying that you're building up this incorruptible, this huge treasure that's in grace. He says, so we do not focus on what is seen. We don't focus on what it looks like today. If God's given us something, if God's grace is apparent in our life, if God's blessed us with something through his grace, we don't look at how it looks. We don't worry about what's happened. We don't put our feelings inside of it. He says, so we do not focus on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary. But what is unseen, grace is eternal. Let us pray. Father God, we come to you now in the name of your Son, Yeshua the Christ. God, we come praying and believing in your word that because of grace, we don't have to give up, God. We come praying and believing that although we're going through some momentary afflictions, although things may be hard in our life right now, that you have given us grace, everything that we need on the inside. You are renewing us daily. You've given us grace so that we can get through any adversity that we have in our life, God. And we come believing in your grace today, God. We come believing that we don't have to give up today, God. We come believing that you're going to stand with us today, God. We come believing that regardless of the situation, if you gave it to us, If it's from your grace, regardless of what it looks like, God, you will give us everything that we need to get through it. And so we come believing today that we're more than conquerors, God. We come believing today that we are the lender and not the borrower today, God. We come believing today that everything we put our hands to in grace, God, anything that you direct us to, that God, we're going to see it grow. We're going to see it be prosperous, God. We come believing in all your promises of grace, God. We know that this is just not words on a paper in a Bible. But this is the promise of grace for our life, God. And it is my prayer, first of all, that you begin to show us what you've given us. Because the challenge for many of us today, God, is we're calling something grace that ain't grace. The challenge for us today, God, is we have attached ourselves to something and we're saying it's from you and we're believing it's from you, but it's not from you, God. I'm praying that you give us wisdom to understand what's grace. What is the grace in our life? We got things in our life, God, we need to throw the towel in, God. And I'm praying today, God, that you begin to allow a spirit of wisdom to come in this place, God, because we've been so conformed to this world. God, I'm praying for transformation to happen today, God, that we will see grace and that we will not give up on the grace for our life. And I'm praying all these things in the name of your son, Yeshua the Christ. And the church said, amen. Amen. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. When I first pulled this towel out, when Shaki first handed me this towel, the first thing that jumped in my mind was my old church days growing up. Whenever I saw this towel, I knew somebody was about to show enough preach, right? I knew some sweating was about to go on, and it was going to be about an hour or 2 hours later before we get out the building. This the towel. You know, I carry a handkerchief because we modern day, but in the old days, you know what you do? Wipe that head, throw that towel right over his, you know, y'all know, I'm Baptist. I was raised Baptist, so this is the Baptist church. I know Methodist church, I was probably using the handkerchief, but in the Baptist church, they got the sweat, and there wasn't an air conditioner in there. The windows open, folk was sitting all in the aisles, and he pulled this thing out, and then he had to, there's an expression. It dates back to the early 1900s. While the origin is from the boxing arena, very few people know what was the actual story behind it. But the expression is throwing in the towel. And what this expression represents is that there are going to be some things that are going to happen in the course of a fight that may require for the fight to be stopped, because if the fight is not stopped, this person is going to literally die in the ring. And so what the people in the corner would do is they would watch the fight, and if it got to a place in the fight where they felt, hey, he can't defend himself, he can't get it. This is not rope-a-dope, right? He's just not getting you to get tired and just beat. No, he's hitting you right in the face. And he's hitting you in the face repeatedly. And if you take 5 or 6 more of those, we may be carrying you out of here in a black bag. And so what the people on the side would do in the corner of this person, they would take the towel and they would throw it in the ring. And that would symbolize, that would be a symbol to the referee that the fight is over. I give up. We give up. We cannot win. Matter of fact, if we keep going, we're going to just hurt ourselves, is what you're trying to say. And then there are times in a fight when you're thinking, man, somebody needs to throw the towel in, but nobody will throw the towel in. And even in that fight, rope-a-dope, I'm talking about with Muhammad Ali, when he was just letting George Foreman just beat up on him, just punch him. His corner never threw it in, because the strategy was for him to lay on the ropes and for the ropes to take most of the blows and for him to cover his head and cover his heart. And he could take as many blows as he can and allow for his opponent to tire out. And what it comes down to, and this is what it comes down in life, there are times in our life when we should throw the towel in. I know everything you've heard all your life from church has told you, don't give up, don't quit, don't give up, don't quit. But listen, here's a reality. I'm sorry. There are some times in your life when you're not operating in grace, when you've gotten yourself in something that's not grace, and it's been a long time since you should have been thrown the towel in. It's been a long time since you should have been. But you've been reading some stuff, and you've been hearing some stuff. You know, we stand up in a culture that tells you when you quit or when you give up, that's a bad thing. And so now you're taking what the culture is saying, and you're taking a lot of that culture is being said from the pulpit, and you're sitting in situations with things in your life, and you should throw the towel in. Now here's the opposite of that. There's stuff that you're quitting on. You're throwing the towel in all the time, and it's great stuff. It's stuff that you're supposed to be fighting to the end. You're not supposed to be giving up on it. And the age-old challenge when it comes to giving up is really understanding when to throw in the towel, when not to throw in the towel. And so what I want to talk to you today is, I want to talk from the topic of grace and giving up. I want you to understand, when is it appropriate to throw in the towel? When is it not appropriate to throw in the towel? And I want to start just at the top. It's never appropriate for you to throw in the towel. It's never appropriate for you to give up on God. I know we stand in a society. We make songs about this stuff. I'm all churched out. I'm hurt and confused. I don't want to go back to God. I'm done. I'm mad at. We say these things. This is a part of our culture. I'm going on a sabbatical from. How can you go on a sabbatical from God? David said, when I went to the highest mountain, you were there. When I went to the lowest valley, you were there. Way in the deep part of the sea where people ain't never been before, you there. Way out there in outer space. Well, listen, we don't have a telescope that can go out and see. You can't get away from God. But we've been taught this flawed theology. Like I just got to get away from God. I just got to get away from church people. I just need to stop going to church. That is our answer to challenges in our life. We get mad at God. We get mad at a situation. And you know what our answer is? I'm going to throw in the towel on church. I can't do church no more. I'm so tired of church. I can't. What has church done to you? What has God done to you? What has church done to you? And the first thing I want to explain to you, there is never a situation. There is never, ever, ever a situation. I'm going to say it one more time. There is never, ever, 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 ever a situation in which you should throw in a towel on God. The same God that said he would never throw in the towel on you. The same God that forgave you for all that stuff that you before you got saved. Some of it that you did even on the way to this place this morning. Some of the thoughts that are going through your mind, even as you've been in this place, and God never gave up on you. He's always forgiven you. He's always stood beside you. He's always washed you and justified you, no matter how bad you did, no matter what you did. God has always been there for you. He's never thrown in the towel. And grace says he will never, as long as you believe in him, he will never throw in a towel on you. And so why would you ever allow yourself or anything in your life to get you to the point where you throw the towel in on God? Look what Paul tells the Roman church. He says, for I am persuaded, I am sure. Nobody else ain't got to tell me anything. Nobody's got to fool me. Nobody's got to pump me up, prime me. I'm persuaded. I understand that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor bills, nor divorce, nor mistake, nor sins that I've committed, nor embarrassment, nor rejection. Nothing is what he's saying. There's not going to be anything present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing. There's nothing that can separate me from God. There's nothing that's going to happen in my life that's going to make me even think about throwing in the towel when it comes to God. No. During the time when things are hard, during the time when angels are coming against me and death and life and principalities and powers and all these things are coming at me, that's the time I draw in. That's the time I run into the stronghold. That's the time I run into the strong tower. That's the time I make my bed with God. That's the time I spend time with him. That's the time I pray more. That's the time I meditate. But here's the reality of it all. We got people right in this room that during this time, during the tough times of your life, you throw in the towel for God. You just give up. You just stop reading. You stop going to church. You stop spending time around. You don't want to be around them God people because all they're going to do is make you feel. No. There's never a time for throwing in the towel when it comes to God. There's never a time for giving up on God because God will never give up on you. He says that none of this stuff shall ever be able to separate me from God, from grace, from the love of God that I have inside of Jesus Christ. He says nothing comes against me. No issue I have, nothing, no disappointment, nothing that happened. Some I thought was grace and it wasn't grace. And God took it from me or I couldn't maintain it, because you can't maintain nothing that God hadn't given you. You can't pay a car note that God hadn't, if he hadn't given you the car. You can scramble. I'm sorry. You can scramble and do all kind of stuff. If you went out and bought too much house, you went out and bought too much car, it wasn't grace, listen, you're gonna spend days, months, years trying to scramble. And eventually, if it wasn't for you, it's going back. It may not go back. Listen, it may not go back because they may not repossess it, but it might just break down and not move no more. You got to understand, when you're operating outside of God, you can't keep something alive that he won't dead. My peach tree died. I can try my best to fertilize it and water it. I've been going out there fertilize it. It's not coming back. It's dead. When God takes his hand off of something, if it's not in God's will for you, I can't get mad at God and say, God, you took my peach tree. You killed my, no, just plant another peach tree. Not only you can't throw the towel in on God, but listen, you can't give up on yourself. You can't get to this place where you say, I'm worthless, I'm an addict, I can't change. I've heard people say, that's just who I am. You just have to deal with that. That's just who I am. And it's something that's foul, that's out of order, that doesn't line up with the word of God. No, God didn't create you. That's not who you are. God didn't create you to be an addict. God didn't create you to be addicted to something online. God didn't create you to be addicted to something that you put in your body. God didn't create you to be mean to other people and to cuss people out. God didn't create you that way. Those are some things that have happened to you throughout the course of your life that has caused you to be outside of that grace that God has for you. God created you with grace. And while we're not perfect, all of us have some things. You need to understand that what we end up doing a lot of time is we end up throwing the towel on the things that God needs us to change, the things that are not from God inside of us. And we end up holding on to some junk that we know we need to get rid of. So God wants us to change our behavior, wants us to be a little bit nicer. We tried one time, they didn't respond the way we thought they were going to respond. We thought, if I did these 2 or 3 things, then I could get this person to do one thing, and that person to do that one thing. And we say, I'm done with that. I'm going to throw the towel in on that. And then we keep going back to get the drug. We keep going back to get the drink. We keep going back to the pornography site. We keep going back. We won't throw the towel in on the things that God didn't put inside of us, but we throw the towel in on the things that God put inside of us. And we got to get to this place where we understand. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. I am what I am. You're not an addict. You're not addicted. You're not an addict. You're not addicted to anything. You're not a bad person. You're not a bad child. You're not an issue. You're not a problem. You're not any of that stuff. You are what you are because of the grace of God, and his grace toward me is not in vain. And what Paul is saying is, I am who I am, whether I can speak well or whether I can't speak well. I may have some things about me. I may not be the smartest. I may not be the fastest, but I am who I am by the grace of God. I don't take that for granted. I get up every day. And on those things on the inside of me that I need to do, I labored more abundantly than they all. I don't just give up on the things that I know that I need to change, on the things that God has shown me that I need to change. I'm not trying to do it. He says, but by the grace of God, which was with me, not about what people said about me, not about some view of what I had on the inside of me. It was about the grace. I read the book, and the book told me what kind of man I was supposed to be. And what I did was I began to apply the book of grace to my life. And instead of me trying to be what the world wanted me to be, or what somebody else wanted me to be, or even what I thought I needed to be, I began to be everything that God wanted me to be. And I got up every day, and I work hard every day to be exactly what it is that God wants me to be. And I'm never throwing in the towel on myself. And let me just talk to you for a second. I want to make this plain. I don't know what you're going through. But I know depression is real. I don't know what you're going through. But I know suicide is real. I don't know what you're going through, but what I want to tell you is, I want to tell somebody is, you are so important to me. You are so important to, I know sometimes it gets into your head and you begin to think, if I was gone, if I wasn't around, if I throw the towel in, if I give up, that everybody will be better. That's what your mind begin to say to you. If I wasn't around, I hear a husband's thinking now, if I wasn't around, my family would just be better without me. I hear a wife thinking now, a mother thinking now. If I was just not around, I hear that in the spirit right now. If I wasn't around, they would be better without me. Things would be more. Listen, no. I want you to hear, because that is one of the biggest misconceptions in the world. This world is better because of you. Don't throw in the towel on yourself. This church is better because you are part of this church. If you leave this church is not going to be the church that God had from us. You are grace to us. You are grace to your pastor. Your pastor loves you. You don't have to question whether or not this world is better. I'm telling you now, your pastor loves you. Don't ever think about, don't ever consider throwing in the towel or doing something that's going to take yourself out or listen to me, I'm talking to somebody. It doesn't matter what grades you make. It doesn't matter how much pressure you're under. Regardless of what you have going on, you need to understand your life is more valuable than grades. Your life is more valuable than what you did, than the mistake you made. I know some things get out, reputations get ruined. I know, but let me tell you, as somebody who had a ruined reputation, God can fix that. God can even take you to be a pastor someday. Even with all the mess, the junk, the mistakes that I made, God can still use you. God will use those experiences, those mistakes, those issues that you have, so you can reach so many more people, so that you can understand, so that you can be authentic, so that your ministry can go out and it can touch people. Do not throw in the towel. Not want you to throw in the towel. The Bible says don't throw in the towel on yourself. But listen to me. I'm about to make somebody mad. You can't throw in the towel on your family. You'll be surprised at how many times I'm sitting there talking to people. I'm talking about family. I'm not talking about marriages now. We're going to get to that. I'm talking about family. I'm talking about you guys came out the same womb. You keep going up and up at the top somewhere. You guys are blood cousins. You got a mama. You got a dad. You got cousins. You got brothers and sisters. And you throwing in the towel on these folk? You saying because they did something or didn't do something, or because of something that happened when you guys were growing up, or something they did as an adult, something they said ugly about you, that you're done with family? No. Matter of fact, Paul says to Timothy, he says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, anybody who's not there for their family, anybody who throws the towel in on their family, and especially for their own household. We're talking about if you stay in the same house, you got sisters and brothers that you have thrown the towel in on. I'm done with them. Listen, it's not right. And it happens all the time. You'll be surprised at how many times I'm counseling with somebody who is saying, my brother and sister, they hurt me for the last time. I've completely blotted them out of my life. They're dead to me. I've heard that people say that about aunties, about uncles, about cousins, about sisters. I've heard people say that about their mother, their father. I've heard parents say that about their children. And none of that is grace related. Matter of fact, if you read this closely, he says that person has denied their faith. Faith with grace comes by what? Faith. You're denying grace is what he's saying. And listen, this is what he says. That person is worse than a person who doesn't even believe. He said you'll be better being an infidel. You'll be better being somebody who doesn't believe in grace at all. If you're going to throw the towel in on your family, if you're going to say, my mom and them did me wrong, I'm done with them, I'm never going to deal with them again, I'm not going to open the door, I don't care what happens, my sister them that done me wrong for the last time, I'm throwing the towel. Now this is what Paul says. You got to take the Bible for what it's worth. You got to take the Bible. You got to understand the Bible. I know your feelings get involved. I'm sensing a strong spirit in this place right now. There's some parent issues in this place right now. There's some children issues in this place right now. I'm sensing from the Spirit of the Lord. There's some sibling issues in this place right now. I can sense in the Spirit. I hear in the Spirit. You need to understand this. What Paul is saying is that a person who turns their back, who throws the towel in on their family, especially those who were born in the same house as you, you're no different than an unbeliever. You've basically pushed away from grace. There are going to be times in your life when the people who grew up with you are going to hurt you more than the people that are out there in this world. There are going to be times in your life when the people who, listen, the rumors and the lies sometimes going to start right there in them people that you grew up with. Y'all played with blocks together, played jacks, whatever y'all did together, hide and seek, whatever y'all did together. And now y'all old and now they out there talking about you, your kids, and everything else. But the solution to that is not to throw in the towel on them. That's not grace. Not only do you not give up on your family, but you got to get this. You can't give up on grace relationships. Now, I'm taking this, I'm going to put this in context. This is Matthew 19:6. We hear this a lot at weddings. He says, therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. We hear that a lot at weddings, but I'm taking it a step further. I believe that God puts these grace relationships in your life. And grace relationships are no different than wedding relationships or any other relationships. And they definitely are no different than no grace relationships in this way. They're hard to maintain. Anytime you're in relationship with somebody else that has free will, it's difficult to be in a long-term, multi-year relationship with anybody. Husband, wife, friend. But here's the reality. Any relationship that God puts together, if you know that God joins you with somebody, any relationship, when I sit down with couples to counsel, the first thing that we have to answer is whether or not this is a covenant marriage. First thing I ask. We may take 3 or 4 sessions just talking about whether or not God really put you together. Because he says what God put together. If you got friends that God put in your life, if you got a husband or a wife that God put in your life, he says that nobody should separate that. But if God didn't put it together, and this is the problem, a lot of our relationships were not God-ordained relationships. God didn't put us together. We were together, but we got friends, we have people, we've been married, we got things going on, and it was out of convenience. That person was convenient at the time. We've got some people in our life, I'm just talking to you now, that we were with them out of fear. We got some people in our life, we were with them out of hurt. We didn't want to be hurt no more. So we said, this person will probably not hurt me. And we married that person, or we made them our best friend, and we keep them in our life. But God did not put this person in your life. And all this drama and pain, and listen, this is the challenge. For people that are not grace ordained for your life, for people who are not in grace relationship with you, you know, you'll fight to the death. Everybody around you, your mama, your cousin, the horoscope you read, everything, your horoscope will say, let go of your best friend. Everything around you, all the stuff you turn to, all the people you ask, everybody in the world will be telling you, you need to let that dude, you need to let that girl, you need to let them go. And you won't let, you're not going to throw the towel in. No, that's my ace boon coon. We've been together since. Well, the reason that you met each other is because y'all were fighting somewhere, and your backs got together, and you just, you thought about, we're going to fight together. And because of that reason, you're trying to create a 50, 60-year relationship, a friendship with that person, and they keep bringing junk into your life and issues into your life, and they beating you down, and they pulling you away from God, and you should have been. It was just out of fear. It was just out, you didn't want to be alone. You got to the school, and nobody else accepted you, and it wasn't a God thing. This person just saw something in you. You were attracted to that person. It could be anything, and now you've tried to create a covenant relationship where there is no covenant. And here's the opposite. You got people that God put in your life. God ordained people in your life. They may not always get along with you. Sometimes they may tell you, this was good about them. Sometimes they tell you what you need to hear. And sometimes what it is that they tell you is not what you want to hear. That's why you keep going back over here to the non-God ordained people, because they sit with you in your mess and they confront, they build you up. Girl, I wouldn't have put up with that, girl. Ain't no way in the world I would have sat back and done that. I would have been left. Your God ordained husband, your God-ordained sister, your God-ordained cousin. I would have been left this God-ordained person and been over here with this person that's not ordained by God to be in your life. And we've got to get to the place where we understand this thing. And this is what you got to understand. If God put you with somebody, you can't give up. You've got to understand. If God put you with somebody, you can't throw in the towel. Not only is it on relationships, grace relationships, but grace assignments. When you think about Noah, and Minister Lyons did a wonderful job of walking through Noah last week, I just want you to understand, Noah gets a grace assignment. It doesn't make sense to anybody. Noah's not a carpenter. He's got to build an ark. He's out there hammering on this thing. It's 100 years go by, and he's still working on this thing. He's still waiting on this thing, but he never gives up. And listen, let me talk to you for a second. I know so many times we're so quick to throw the towel in. God has tapped you to be a deacon. God has tapped you to be a minister. God has tapped you to come in, be a part of the praise team. God has tapped you to go out and serve somebody. God has tapped you to go and be this thing that God has called you to do. God has tapped you to be a teacher. God has tapped you to be a counselor. Whatever the case may be, God has tapped you to do it. And every time you look around, you just want to throw the towel in. You know God tapped you. You know God called you to do it, but you want to throw the towel in. And then you got this other stuff. God ain't bit more called you to do this stuff. You saw an infomercial. It was late at night. You shouldn't have been up. But you thought that was grace, right? Because I should have been asleep, but I was up. And so now I'm supposed to be going out and flipping houses. I'm supposed to be doing this thing that God hadn't called you to do. This quick, get rich quick scheme thing. You buy this booklet, and then the booklet will magically make these houses. But your credit ain't right. You're not ready for that. You're not in a position to buy properties. You don't have credit to buy property. You don't have resources to buy properties. But if you buy this book, you're going to make him rich. And you'll get that thing, and you'll be committed to that thing. And you'll be going around telling people and getting other people to go buy the book to make him rich. And all y'all just sitting around, won't throw the towel in. You go to try to buy the first house, can't even get it. None of the stuff he said in the book was right. But you know that the book will get. I know if I just keep on, I'm not going to throw the towel away. I'm not going to let go on this get rich quick scheme. I ain't working a job no more. I'm not going back out there. I'm done teaching. I'm done doing the thing that God called me to do. I done throw the towel in on that. And here's the reality of it is, we've got to get to a place where we just like Noah, where regardless of the situation in our life, if God told us to do it, we keep hammering. If it take 100 years and nobody ever shows up but our own family, we got to be okay with that. If you put the blog out there and nobody signs up for the blog but one person, that's what God sent you, for that one person, to reach that one person. If you go down and serve, and after you leave in the serving place, you see that they don't care, they're saying ugly things, you go right back and serve. If God called you to serve, if nobody shows up, regardless of the situation, if God called you to do it, if it is a God assignment, you never throw the towel in. Not only if it's a grace assignment, but if you get to this place where you want to throw in the towel on grace, let me just talk to you for a second. Let me just read this with you for a second. This is what Paul says. Therefore, we don't give up on grace. We don't stop because of issues, because of challenges. Even though our outer person is being destroyed, our inner person is being renewed daily. For our momentary light affliction is producing for us, and listen to this, absolutely incorruptible, eternal weight of glory. You hold on to it. You don't give up. I know you might not be able to see it in yourself, but you keep on every day. I know you might not be able to see things change, God, with the God inside of you, but don't you let it go. I know things may not be changing with your family members, but you keep on doing the grace thing. I know you may be going through some things, but you keep on pushing. You keep on pushing every single day. I know the assignment that God gave you. It may not be showing up the way you thought it was going to show up. You may not be getting the people in the way you thought that you were going to get them in. You may not be raising the thing that you thought that you were going to raise, but you don't give up on it. Although it's hard on the outside, although things are hard, although on the outside you've got this momentary light affliction, although on the outside you've got these things going on, you don't focus on what you can see. You focus on grace. You focus on what God has called you to do. And regardless of what's happening in your life, you never throw the towel in for something that's grace related. But listen, there's some things that are distracting you from grace. You got to throw the towel in on those things. And this is the dilemma. And at this point, I have not done anything but pointed out to you the obvious. That you've got some things in your life you're holding on to that you need to let go. And you've got some things in your life that you can't let go. But James addresses this. When we look at James in chapter 1, he gets down to verse 5. And he says, if any of you lack wisdom, If you got things in your life and you're trying to figure out, is this a grace thing or is this something I need to let go? Do I need to throw the towel in for this or do I need to stay? Do I need to keep the marriage or do I need to let the marriage go? There's no question about the family. There's no question about whether or not you need to love on your sisters and keep the door open for relationships with your parents. There are no questions about those things. But you begin to ask the question, how much do I give? How much do I try? You need wisdom for those things. You need wisdom for that God. If God showed you what your calling was, there's no question about that. You don't need God to confirm anything else. You got it confirmed. You know what God has called you to do. We don't need wisdom for that. But what you may need wisdom for is how do you get out and become effective? How do you understand? How do you reach more people inside your call? It's not a question about whether or not you need to throw in the towel about God or not. We don't need wisdom for that. But what we want to do is we want to reach out to God and want to ask him, God, how can I get closer to you? How can I understand you better? How can I tell me how I spend the most effective time with you? How do I grow in grace the most? He says, if you lack wisdom, if you don't know when to throw in the towel or when not to throw in the towel, if you don't know whether the thing that you had a towel for, if you should throw it in or not, you just need to, all he says, if you lack wisdom, all I need you to do is to come to me. All you got to do is ask me. All you have to do is spend some time with me. All you have to do is come to me and pray and meditate and actually put it before me. Ask me, is this the person I'm supposed to be with? Ask me. All you have to do is ask me. Don't go on what you feel. Don't go on what other people said. Come to me and ask me. And he says, not only will I give it to you, I'll give it to you generously. I'll give you everything that you need. I'll give it to you I won't even, listen, I know you didn't come to me before you did this thing. I know you didn't come to me before you got yourself in this mess. I know you didn't come to me before you purchased this thing. You thought it was a grace thing. They did some funny math. You thought that was grace, right? They was moving some stuff around and putting stuff in your budget that you don't, money that you don't even make. They were doing some things. You thought that was helping you. Grace was getting you that car. You thought grace was getting you that house. It may not have been grace. He says, but if you get to this place and you want to know whether you're supposed to throw the towel in or not, the first thing you need to do is that you need to seek grace wisdom. You need to understand. You need to understand if the thing that you're trying to hold on to is the thing that God has for you. Not only do you need to get to this place where you seek grace wisdom, but you need to get to this place where you actually act on the wisdom that God gives you. God says, if you want wisdom, all you have to do is come to me. I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to give it to you generously. I'm going to give it to you liberally. But the only thing I need you to do is I need you to ask in faith without doubting. I don't need you asking me something, and when I tell you what to do, when I tell you to let go of that person, when I show you what you need to do, when I tell you to let go of that thing, when I tell you to move on, throw the towel in, or when I tell you not to throw the towel in. Now all of a sudden you ask him, but what about this God? And what about this God? And what about these? And this happened. What about when that happened? And what about, no, he says, you asked me for the wisdom. I understood the question when you asked me. Now I need you to actually do what I'm telling you what to do. I'm giving it to you liberally. I'm giving it to you generously. I'm telling you everything that you need to get through this situation in your life. And the only thing I need you to do is to act in faith without doubting. Why? Because the doubter is like the surging sea, driven and tossed back by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. He says a person that comes to me and asks me, should I throw the towel in? Should I not throw the towel in? Will you show me the grace thing? Will you give me the wisdom? Will you show me what to do? And then I give you that information and you begin to doubt or ask other questions, or you just won't let go. The person says you need to let that person go. The Spirit of the Lord says to you clearly it's time for you to move on. And you say, well, when? Should I move it now or should I move later? Give me a sign. Should I wait the next month? Should I? But I need to get these things in order. Well, if I leave, where am I going to go? What? He says that person who asks for wisdom, God gives them the wisdom, and that person doesn't act in faith, that person is a doubter, and that person is indecisive and unstable in everything that you do. You got to get this, guys. Got to get this. Let me just take my time on this because I want you to get this. You become indecisive. You become unstable in all your ways. So now you become a person who throws the towel in when you shouldn't throw the towel in. And you become a person who doesn't throw the towel in when you should throw it in. And that becomes who you are. And everybody knows you as a flaky person. You are a person who is always standing up for the wrong thing. And you are a person who's always sit down when you should stand up. And that becomes the character of who you are. You become a person, and people know this, and you know this. And if you just think about it, you don't have to think about it hard. People begin to see that you are the person who will stand for the wrong thing and who will sit down for the right thing. He says that when you go to God and you ask him to reveal this to you, and he reveals it to you, but you don't act on it, you become unstable, not just in that one thing, but it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes your DNA. People know not to go to you for advice. That's why you going to more people for advice than they're coming to you for advice, because they realize that you just sometimes just say what the wrong thing. You just don't know what you're talking. You don't get good advice. It becomes a part of who you are. Not only do we have to get to this place where we actually, if God tells you to throw it in, you throw it in. If God tells you not to, I don't care how much it hurts. Sometimes you go to God and you want him to say throw it in. You just know he's going to say throw it in. And he reveals it to you and he says, no, you got to sit there. That's your ordained husband. Sometimes you go to God and you say, oh, God, I want this to work. I want this to work. I don't want it. It's been so many years. I don't want to let this go. And he says, but I never put it together. And the question is, will you have the faith to act on it? But check this out. If you act on it, if you do that thing, if you throw it in when you should throw it in, or if you keep it when you should keep it, this is what James says. He says, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. Blessed is the one who doesn't give up when you're not supposed to give up, who throws it in when you should throw it in, but who doesn't give up. Regardless of the situation, you don't give up on your family. Regardless of the situation, you don't give up on yourself. Regardless of the situation, I know you want to walk off the job. You don't have nothing lined up, though. And regardless of the situation, you stick through the job. And what he says is, blessed is this person who doesn't give up on God, who doesn't throw the towel in on God, doesn't go on sabbaticals, doesn't stop going to church, doesn't get away from God, from everything that they believe. Blessed is this person who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. He says, listen, I'm promising you grace. I'm promising you this crown of life. I'm promising you this grace reward. I don't care what it looks like in your marriage. If he ordained it, don't give up. I don't care what it looks like in your marriage. If he didn't ordain it, it's time for you to move on. I'm sorry. I'm pro-marriage. And I know you haven't heard a pastor talk like this before probably. But here's the reality. Every marriage is not God ordained. And you're doing more damage to your children and to your everything, to yourself. If God didn't ordain for you to be with a person, you need to get out of that relationship. I know that's foreign to you. But it's the reality of it is, I'm not going to encourage you to stay out of God's will for your life. If God didn't put you, you're out of God's will if he didn't put you with a person. But if God put you with a person, I don't care who they slept with, what they did. If you know in your heart that God put you with this person, it was your ordained person, you have to forgive them. You can't throw the towel in. I don't care what your parents did. They may have left you. They may have beat you. They may have said ugly things about you. You may still struggle today at work when boss say something to you because of something your parents said to you. I don't care what they did to you. The Bible tells you to honor your parents. Doesn't matter. Don't put your mouth on them. Don't say nothing ugly about them. Don't wish bad things on them. You got to love them because the Bible says you got to honor them. Parents, I don't care what your children do. You cannot throw the towel in on your child. You brought them into this world. How ridiculous does that sound? If the whole world gives up on them, you do not have the opportunity to give up on your children. I don't care what they have done. Those are your children. You can't throw the towel in on them. It doesn't matter what's going on. If God put you in a grace relationship, I don't care whether it's somebody from high school or somebody you just met. Don't throw the towel in on that person because it gets hard. Relationships are not easy. If God gave you a business, if it's grace, that God, I don't care what it looks like, you have to keep going. If you know God gave it to you, if you know God put it there for your life, there's a crown waiting on you. This is what James is saying. If you can just persevere, the child, it may not ever change the way you want him to be. It may not ever become, the child may not ever become, the parent may not ever become, the relationship may not ever be the way you want it to be, but you can have peace about it. You can have a peace that surpasses all understanding because you've done everything that you're supposed to do. And the job may not ever be what you want it to be. And people may not ever change. But if God has you there, there's a crown waiting for you. And no matter what's going on in your life, if God has you in it, you've got to stay with it until you get the crown. And I want you to think about this for a second. The crown is not what they do. The crown is not how much money you make. The crown is not how wonderful things get at your house or how wonderful things. That's not the crown. The crown is grace. The crown is your ability. Although you're hard pressed on every side, you can still make it. You still got your mind together. God is still taking you to a place where you never thought that you can be. The crown is the relationship with God. Now you understand him better. Now you're closer to him. The crown is you reaching out and you evangelizing and you bringing people to him that would have never came to him but for your circumstance, but for your hurt, but for your pain, but for the ministry that God birthed throughout your own grace. So this week, I want you to keep this with you. For grace now, not for everything, but for grace. If I don't throw in the towel, God will give me a crown. How simple is that? If I don't throw in the towel, if God told me it was mine, if God said this was my mate, if God gave me these children, if God gave me these parents, if God said this is my profession, if God said this is my business, if God said this is my calling, if I don't throw in the towel, God's going to give me a crown. That's the promise that's being made. If I don't give up, if I just stay steadfast, if I just stay immovable, if I just keep going forward in God, if I don't care what my body feels like, I don't care my feelings, I don't care what I feel like in my mind, I don't care what people are saying about you or what people are saying about me. Here's the reality of it all. If you don't throw in the towel when God has told you not to throw in the towel, you're going to get a crown. It's coming. It may not look like you want it to look. It's going to be great. It's going to be more beautiful. It's going to be more magnificent. And I want you to imagine. Just imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you stop holding on to stuff that you know. God has been revealing to you the whole time I've been talking to you. You got stuff you've been holding on to. You should have been throwing the towel in. How much different is your life going to be once you get that junk out of your life? And listen, how much different is your life going to be when you start forgiving some folk that were covenant to you, when you start forgiving those folks that were family to you? How much different is your life when you forgive yourself, when you begin to allow God's grace and his forgiveness to operate and his mercy to operate on the inside of you, and you let go of resentment and you let go of rejection and you let go of past hurt? How much different is your life going to be? If you're holding on to something, and you know it's not from God, you don't know it's not from God, it may be time for you to let that go. But if God gave you something, and you know he gave it to you, you fight tooth and nail, and your pastor come fight with you, and we'll stand together, and we'll lay out in sackcloth and ashes, and we'll do everything. We'll fast, we'll pray, we'll get this whole church behind us if we have to. We'll stand with you. We won't let you down. We won't let you go. Don't you step away. Don't you give up. Don't you walk away from God. Don't you walk away from this church. I don't care what's going on in your life. You need to understand that God loves you, that God is with you, that he will never leave, that he will never forsake you, that he is your light, that he is your salvation, that regardless of what it looks like, that God is moving on the inside of your situation, that there's a crown waiting for you. Don't you give up. Don't you let go, because there's a crown waiting for you. To God be the glory. Amen.
Here we stand in the presence of our Savior.
And it's an honor
And it's an honor to lift our voice and
to the living God.
to the living God.
No one can deny
No one can deny
that Jesus Christ
Jesus Christ